What's the number one life hack, Daine, to be successful, live long, or whatever? Just be fucking resilient.
Daine Mcdonald is the go-to mentor for the world's top coaches. From a single gym, he built a $30 million empire training Olympic athletes
and coaching over 50,000 fitness pros and nutritionists. Today, he leads a global movement to impact 1 billion lives through science-based wellness and performance.
As entrepreneurs, we are built to grow and evolve. I think one of the things that people sometimes get caught up in is like, you got to be willing to invest not just time, but money. I don't feel that you can ever reach your highest mission and values in life unless you've experienced unconditional love. And I'll tell you why. Because unconditional love forces you.
What is the abundance pyramid?
It's a 7-step framework that, for me, gives me alignment in all areas of my life. So I guess the first area of the abundance pyramid is my...
Daine, welcome.
All right, brother.
I'm very well. So most men out there, I'd probably say every man out there, wants the dream life, especially people who watch this podcast. They want health, wealth, they want purpose.
Yeah.
But very rarely do we actually see people actually do all three. Like we see so often like people go and become successful, but it comes at the byproduct of burning their relationship or their health or making money than being uninspired. And from what I've seen, you've been able to sort of crush in all of these areas. So before we sort of dive into everything, why do you think most people struggle to do all of them simultaneously?
I think because most men were inherently wired to kind of like protect, serve, go out there and hunt. And in today's society, a lot of that hunting, it comes, it almost translates to earning more money. And so I think a lot of time people's, I guess, identity around what success is actually related more to money than the other things. So, I think for me, like, especially I've gone through multiple different burnouts over the years. Like I haven't kind of had it right the whole time. And even now, like far out, I ruptured my bicep tendon 12 weeks ago. Like my training's been off the last few months because I haven't been able to train and stuff like that. But I think just, my big barometer for success has been like, how do I feel when I wake up every day? And, that's going to be an amalgamation of, my family, my relationships with my wife, my relationships with my kids, my health, impact that I'm making in my business, the income that I'm generating, and all of them together.
Yeah. Do you think do you think you can do all simultaneously, or was there times in your life where you had seasons where you're like, hey, baby, this next 6 months, you guys see me less. I'm going to be all out in the business. But after that, we're taking a family holiday for 1 month, or, okay, I'm going to dial in my health and the business is going to have less attention. Like, is that sort of how you operate? Or
No, look, I definitely think it's seasonal. Like anyone that is going to sit down and tell you that every single area of their life is 10 out of 10 is probably kind of pulling the wool over your eyes. Like I kind of look at it and say, if you're looking at those three kind of categories, right? You got health, you got wealth, you got, your family, your passion, success, and whatever that is. Most times we'll be able to do 2 or 3 like in flow, like it may be a 9 or a 10.
I found I can do 2 pretty well. Yeah, I tried to act on the third. I'll let it.
Yeah. And I think the main thing is just like having a bit of compassion for yourself and a bit of like, self-empathy. It's like, it's okay to not to put that pressure on yourself that you have to be all things in every area of life for all people as well.
That's kind of the, like I just think it's super real at the moment because it's like,
you're a new dad.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Yeah, very soon. And so I think life's going to change quite a bit. But it's almost like the more successful I've become, the more I feel like I have to do it faster.
Yeah.
I know. Have you ever felt like that? Where it's like, the more you do, it's like, we're not there. Quick. Like,
I think, have you found that's intensified for you more knowing that you've got a child coming?
I've thought about this because I remember like Tony Robbins shared. So like, I remember like hearing Tony Robbins speak years ago, and he goes, when I first, his first wife or his girlfriend at the time, she fell pregnant, and he's like, oh shit, and he goes, that was a driving force, and he made $1 million that year, right? He's going to crush it. And I thought that, I was like, when we found out we're pregnant, I'm like, I wonder if that's going to be I'm like, but it could be unconsciously, very liable, I take it seriously. But I would probably argue that it's just more so the point of, it's a new year, and every time a new year starts, I'm like, how can we just do 10 times more this year than we did last year? So it could be the combination of just wanting to progress and do more. We have this new building, and
I honestly, my opinion on it is for most like entrepreneurs and in particular founders, most of us have this internal dialogue that drives it. So irrespective of having a child being a trigger to activate that more, we're wired to think that way. And, I think the biggest thing is for most like founders, entrepreneurs, it's a lot harder in general, at least from my own experience, to sit in the present.
Yeah.
Right. We're thinking on longer time horizons.
Yeah.
1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. Right. And so it's like, I think for me, what's really helped me is my wife. And this is why I often say, like, the person that you marry is ultimately the most important decision, or person that you partner up with, whether you marry or not, right? But the person you partner up to is the most important decision you make in life. Because for me, as a mum, as a woman, she's so great at grounding in the present moment, right? She's so great at being in the present moment. And that's one thing I've learned from her. It's like she allows me to go forth and, you charge, mate, you go out there and do it. But just remember, we're living now, right? We're living in the present moment now. So I think a lot of it is just how entrepreneurs are wired. But then ultimately, I know for me too, like the more kids that I've had, I've got 7 of them. Can't believe I just said that. I've got 7 of them. Like each one that I've had actually has probably triggered more of that time thing too. Like me thinking, far out, like
I can't do it faster.
Yeah, because of the pressure. So it's saying that I have to, and that pressure I put on myself to self-impose, no one else is putting there. But it's saying I continuously have to remind myself, stop, breathe, reflect, have a bit of compassion for myself, have a bit of empathy for myself. And it's all right. Like, I was speaking to someone the other day and like it took me 13 to 14 years to hit 8 figures of revenue in my business per annum.
You're right. Okay.
No, 13 to 14 years. So same core brand, but four different business models. So like the different, first was personal training, the next was gyms, the next was like live event seminars. And each one of those, I kind of got to a point where either I didn't have the skills to scale it any further at that point in my career, or there wasn't product market fit or viability for it to expand at the rate that it could have in that vertical. So it took me 13, 14 years of kind of persevering. So I've had to learn patience throughout my entrepreneurial journey because it's saying that just through, I don't know, the byproduct of life has just happened that way for me.
Do you think it was a skill set thing you acquired to break past the financial ceiling, or is it a new version of you that you developed?
Both, because the new version of me. So what actually got me, and I got to like 8 mil and stuff like that. And, every time I kind of got there, it would just kind of stay there, then kind of go back to 6 and 7, 8, and just wouldn't bust through. The way that I got through there was actually having to become a new version of me. And that's something that Joe Dispenza helped me with heaps, like in essence, almost kind of channeling and visioning myself as Daine 2025, Daine 2030, stepping into that person, breaking the habit of being the Daine at that time to become the new version of me. So a lot of it was actually just the mindset aspect of things. And in becoming that person had skills that younger Daine didn't have, right? Whether it was leadership, whether it was the ability to delegate, whether it was the ability to read people better, whatever it was. Step 1 was becoming that person, and then the skills flowed from that.
Because I'm really curious on this, because it's like when I first got into business and pursuing success, it was all mindset for me. Right? I spent so time. It's like my mind was a cup of water that was so dirty, right?
Yeah.
So my first few years was just me putting the cup under a free flowing tap of water, just drowning out all this shit, right?
Yeah.
And then once I felt like I started breaking through and having like multiple 5-figure months, right? It's like, it felt like there's a huge mind shift and identity sort of shift to break through that first. And then I started crushing, and then it felt like this super successful, super easy. It's like I went from this personal development approach to success to a very methodical.
I did either way around.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I literally I built my business through becoming the SME of SMEs.
What's SME?
Like a subject matter expert.
Okay.
So like I skill stacked back when I was a trainer, like everything in nutrition training. I travel around the world like the same way that we've all gone and traveled and seen a Tony Robbins or a Joe Dispenza or done that in the personal development space. I was doing that in strength and conditioning, personal training, and nutrition. And that allowed me to become the highest paid trainer in Australia. Back in 2010, I was the highest paid trainer. And that ability to get results as the SME allowed me to build this brand built off results that generated leads. And even at the time though, I wasn't putting any work into my personal development because back then, very closed-minded, old school British upbringing.
So yours was the just hard work ethic mentality.
Mine was probably the Hormozy approach.
Yeah. So it's funny. So mine was the opposite. So my whole first approach was you have to meditate and manifest and shift beliefs, and
That's now.
yeah, and it's like that worked it's almost like it worked for so long, but then I've been such this methodical approach because as we're scaling, I think I've had to step into more a practical leader role.
You know what it is?
And all of this.
You know what I found very, very interesting? That 97.8% of you that listen and view this podcast haven't yet subscribed. Now, if you're looking for the one way that you can actually help us build this show into something that's going to be absolutely incredible and life-changing for you, the one thing you can do is to hit that subscribe button, because it takes a lot of time, effort, and money that we put into this podcast to make it what it is. And we've made it very clear that we never want to run ads or sponsors or anything like that on this show. So the only way that we can actually grow this channel is by subscribers. And I promise to you that if you hit that subscribe button and you help this show grow, then I'm going to continually keep bringing more, bigger, and better guests to teach you the skill set and the mindset that you wish you learned earlier in life. So please, it'll mean the world to me if you hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and do that right now. Now let's get into this episode.
Great reversal for both of us, right? So you got young Daine over here, subject matter expert, skill stacking. Young Morgan over here, subject matter expert on personal development, right? And kind of like this skill stacking person, work, get up at 4 a.m., work 18 hours a day, no weekends, no this, no that, no family time, just, morning routine, have a coffee, get up, go, If I tried that now as a father of 7, with 130 staff members that will be at 250 by this time next year, that's not going to work for me now. I've genuine stress going on in my life that requires me to take care of myself, right? To be the best version of me. So it's like young Daine that was a skill stacker on becoming better at his craft. He could go to battle, one way. Daine the father couldn't. And so it's like what I've learned is this person over here, the rate limiter for me was actually personally developing so that I could become a better leader, become a better delegator, become a better father, become a better husband, become all these things. Whereas I find on the reverse, a lot of people stay on here, but they don't match the habits to the new version of themselves that they're trying to become. So it's like, someone wants to grow a $100 million business. Well, you can't meditate your way to that.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can meditate the vision, right? and I talk about that in my abundance pyramid as the seventh step and the final step, the vision. Like my vision comes from I guess you could say a quantum physics standpoint. I meditate on that. I sit in that. I feel it. I experience it. I smell it. I believe it, right? Before I even get there. But then I match the skills that are required to become that person on a day-to-day.
Yeah. So this is what I want to sort of unpack a little bit, because I think, so you mentioned Joe Dispenza sort of helped a little bit. So what I want to hit is for the person watching this who's like, I feel that I'm either at 20K a month or 2K a month or $1 million a month, and I can't break that next income barrier because I know it's always self-image thing. It's if we believed, if we literally had the image, if we viewed the world, if we viewed the world of success that we wanted, right, like through our own self-image, and I guess what I'm trying to say is we will often receive whatever we believe we're worthy of receiving. 100%, to put it simply.
Yeah.
And it's all a self-image thing. So I'm curious to know, like, what were the sort of, I guess, practical steps you're talking about? You're visualizing this future version of you, the 10-year version of you. How did you then bring that back into the reality and start making physical differences? And like you mentioned, like about habits and actually changing your habits.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on like if we reverse it back, right? Like the first thing I think is for people is getting clarity on what their vision is, right? And a lot of time the vision is going to stem from a few places. It could stem from something they're passionate about. It could stem from society expectation. It could, like for everyone, it's different, right? But I think for me, it's been like, okay, here's the vision. Now, what type of person does Daine need to become to kind of be the person sitting in that vision? What skills does he need to be strong at? And then analyzing like, okay, right now, probably if I was to go and ask the 5 people in my inner circle that I speak with on the day-to-day, how would they rate me as a a manager, right? Or as a leader, what are they going to say? Right. And kind of actually take it. It's almost like doing a SWOT analysis on yourself. It's like, this is where I need to be based off evidence and data from people that I respect, and they're going to give me feedback that I might not want to hear. What's the actuality, right? Not my reality. What's the actuality? And then based off that, it's okay, well, these are areas that I'm, weak in, for lack of a better term. This is where I need to go and read a book. This is where I need to go and do a podcast. This is where I need to actually, what I used to do a lot of was if I went to a workshop with an expert, I would say, hey, can I, hire you for an hour just to pick your brain or something like that? I remember the first time I did that back in 2007 with the late Charles Poliquin. Back then, $1,000 US for an hour of someone's time was a lot of money for me. And I remember being in his workshop, paying him that money. But then what I got in that hour of skill stacking in the area that I was deficient at that point in time, fast track things 3 or 5 years for me. So I think that's one big thing. It's like, as entrepreneurs, we are built to grow and evolve. I think one of the things that people sometimes get caught up in is you got to be willing to invest not just time, but money.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it doesn't matter what season of life I've been in, I've always had some sort of mentor. I mean, my mentor now, actually, ironically, is one of Tony Robbins' business partners. And his name's Paul Sidorovsky. He's an accountant.
Okay.
By trade. But his expertise is in essence in, asset growth. Right? He's good at managing money. I'm great at making money.
Yeah, it's true. Can relate. Yeah.
I've got no issue in receiving it.
Yeah.
But it's like I've put a lot of my chips into building up an EV or enterprise and all that in my businesses. I haven't spent that amount of time putting it into property developments or commercial real estate or stuff like that. So I've identified for my long-term intention of becoming the conscious billionaire. And yes, I just said that here to put that out there. Part of that, it's not just going to be the cash flow from my businesses and the asset value of my businesses. Is going to be through diversifying that into other areas that right now I don't have the experience in or just learning.
Yeah. What is the abundance pyramid?
Yeah.
I mentioned before.
Yeah. So it's kind of a framework that has come through a lot of pain, a lot of joy, a lot of suffering, a lot of reps under the bar, so to speak, a lot of time under the bar. So it's a 7-step, I guess, framework that I feel for me gives me alignment in all areas of my life. So I guess the first area of the abundance pyramid is my health. And people, people sometimes will look at health just from a physical standpoint, right? For me, I look at health from a few things. It's like you got your physical health, your mental health. I prefer to use mental fitness because I think mental health can be a term that implies a label, right? Whereas mental fitness is saying that I can train a conditioner, emotional health, spiritual health, all of these things that we kind of encapsulate into that. It's like, what are you prioritizing in that area? What does the ultimate level of health look like for you in your life? For some people, it's going to be 10% body fat, waking up every day, happy and horny, right? That's them, right? For someone else, it could be they want to, fit into their bikini now and suffer less from anxiety, whatever that might be. It's different for everyone, but really getting clear on, if you're looking health, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what are the key intentions that you have for those areas? Once you've kind of got the vessel down packed, we move into the second stage, which is your tribe, right? So your tribe, it's not just, the people. When I'm talking about your tribe, I'm not talking necessarily about your family, right? I'm talking about your colleagues, your industry networks, your peers, your team members within your business, your friends, anyone that is non-blood, right? What type of tribe do you have supporting you as you go up to this pyramid? Because as we go up, we've got a few other stages that are going to wealth, legacy, stuff like that. You need a team and a tribe to support you, right? I look at what, I've been fortunate enough to kind of do in my business and in my industry. And sure, I might have set the fire, but it's the tribe that is allowing me to get there. I think a good example of that actually is Trump, right? So if you look at what was the key difference between the 2024 election and the 2020 election?
In Trump?
Yeah, or just in his whole election campaign and the way he was kind of perceived.
I think he's been more pissed off this time.
That,
yeah.
But if you step back and look kind of from outside in. This time he had the Avengers.
Okay, yes. He's had the tribe. He's divided the nation. Yeah. He has people that are literally going to war with him now. Where last time they were sort of like,
Yeah, the tribe, right? So Trump, he won the election, but the tribe actually helped him win the election.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a great kind of metaphor for business or for life. So that's step 2. Step 3 is your wealth, right? So your business. So like you've got your health, the vessel, your mindset, you've got your tribe, then you've got your business or your income or your employment or whatever it is that you're doing. And that's where obviously we're looking at financial goals, right? So what is your, how much cash flow do you need to live off every year? What is your, what does your business look like? What does your income look like? And getting really clear on those areas, because at the end of the day, money, whether we like it or not, money is an essential resource, i.e. energy for life, right? It allows us to sit down here and can you believe this is what? Yeah. Like, 5-10 years ago, would you be thinking that you'd be sitting down here just having a chat with the camera and this is work, right?
Yeah.
So that's layer 3. Layer 4 really is all here, right? Your heart, right? What type of relationships are you having with your loved ones, your partner, your wife, that significant other? I come back to what I said earlier, which was your life partner is the most important decision that you will make in your life. This core point, and if you kind of look at it, the human body, right? We start down here, and as we come up to the middle, what's in the middle? The heart, right? If the heart is flowing, right? If you've got the right support network there, the right infrastructure there, you ride or die, like everything just flows stronger and more profound. Like that family crest that I sent you to, right? And you would have noticed there was a word in Gaelic on it called grada.
Ah, okay, yeah.
That's Gaelic because I'm Scottish ancestry.
Okay.
And that's Gaelic for love, right? And then the Chinese stuff that is on that, because my wife is part Chinese, is the Chinese word for resilience.
Right.
So, they're 2 of the key kind of components of our family crest, and what we bestow onto our children is to live life from a place of unconditional love and resilience, because you know what? You're not always going to have, happy days every single day. You're going to have ups and downs, everything in between. So your partner is a massive part of that. So we've got those 4 things. The 5th thing is your family, right? And so family is generally your immediate family. So for those that don't want kids, that's totally cool. It might be your parents. What type of relationships do you have with your parents, your cousins, your aunties and uncles? But a large portion of society has kids. You're about to become a father yourself. The greatest gift, right? All that. What type of relationship do you have with the kids? Do your kids want to spend time with you? Do they want to sit down and watch a movie with you? Do they want to hold your hand when you walk? Do they, how do they involve you as they go from 2 years old, 3 years old, 17 years old? Like I look at right now with my kids, they range from 2 to turning 18, right? And so it's like, with the 2-year-old, it's like, hold daddy's hand. As you hold daddy's hand, you walk down the road and, she sees you and she runs up to you and she cuddles you and stuff like that. As they start getting to 10, 11 and 12, like, what was the research? Before the age of 10, you probably spend between 60 to 75% of all the time that you'll spend with your child in their entire life during that age.
Wow. Before 10.
Before 10. So I'm glad that you're hearing this now.
Yeah.
As a new dad, because it's something that I only heard recently. And then it caused me to step back and really reflect on step 5, like family. So that's why, this year we were actually, people asked like, weren't you meant to be going overseas for a year? And we were. But then I ruptured my bicep tendon and our 3rd oldest kid has been diagnosed with a lifelong kind of medical disease that we've been having to treat at Children's Hospital every week, which shows you, the duality of life. But the whole reason for that, and we will go at the middle of the year now, once his health is a bit better, was to, in essence, just spend a year with the family.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, with our eldest turning 18, he's already talking about moving out of home. That period in his life is gone. So it's, family is important. Then obviously look, step 6 and step 7. Step 6 is basically what type of legacy do you want to leave on this planet, right? Like, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to leave the planet in a net positive? Do you want to do it in a neutral? Do you want to lean into things, or do you just want to step back and passively observe? Most entrepreneurs and founders like to lean into these. I love leaning into these. So it's like, what type of legacy you're leaving, not just on the planet, but also for your family. Like, how are you remembered? What type of infrastructure are you leaving behind? Are you leaving them with emotional love and fond memories? Are you leaving them with pain? Whatever that might be, really getting clear on that. And then step 7, this is the North Star. What's your mission? Right? What is your mission? Like, and I believe in karma and all that type of stuff. Like, why was your soul incarnated into this body, and what were you put here on this earth to do? And that's step 7. And that's probably the hardest for a lot of people to answer. I didn't have any clarity on that until probably the last few years, after kind of going through a dark night of the soul.
Yeah. Look, you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, no one's, I was talking to some of our clients about this even the other day, because we had a 3-day program. We had 100 people all come in for a 3-day event here. And that week we had a cyclone hit the Gold Coast. And like, it hasn't happened in 50 years. Yeah. It's like the most weirdest thing ever happened. Yeah. Right. I had to double check with my team. Like, there's a cyclone. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, yeah. And they're like, no, there's a cyclone. I looked up there. I'm like, what? And within a couple of days, we saw the whole world, here, go absolutely spastic again. Yeah. And they're stockpiling all that paper. And all the shelves are empty. And people are going crazy. I bumped into a lady in our elevator. She goes, I'm going to fill up the bathtub with water. I'm like, what fucking reason are you doing that? What if we run out of water? I'm like, you're really thinking? And it's just interesting to observe that, right? And because what happens is people, they're not very stable up high, and then they result to a low level survival. I'm not worrying about fulfilling my life's purpose or making money or even friends, because I need to make sure my house doesn't blow to pieces during this week.
I think that, though, part of that is, if you kind of want to use the term frequency or whatever, how people kind of look at things. It's like people like that with AI, right? They kind of look at AI as doomsday scenario. Oh my God, ET, Terminator. I look at AI as like, wow, how can this help us transform humanity? How can this really help us evolve as a species for the betterment of the planet? Because you know what? When ASI hits over the next 5 or 10 years, and you've got a digitally conscious entity that is smarter than every human being that's ever existed, I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to do some amazing things to help us. Yeah. But again, it's going to depend on the inputs and the programming that we, as the parents, in essence, because that's what we are, the parents of AI, put in. Are we putting in love? Are we putting in abundance? Are we putting in compassion? Are we putting in fear?
Yeah. So it comes down to, I guess, like, you're saying this from a point who's dialed in your pyramid. Yeah. Right. So the person who's at level 1, who's like, well, I don't have this business yet. I don't have someone who loves me yet. So I want to sort of break down these things so they can start to, because it is similar with, Maslow's needs. It's the more we actually are crushing these levels, we can hold different things. The people who are struggling.
Well, like, for an example, like, if I look at those levels, right, like level 1 to 7, I've only really got clear on my mission now, like from the age of 39 to 40, after like 20 plus years of running my own business and being, captain on my ship. So like, I find like those first things, like health, tribe, and your business, those first 3 things, or your income, those 3 things you can really spend a lot of time selfishly on, up until about the age of 30. Because at the end of the day, once you throw in kids and different stuff like that, and you kind of, you still can work 18 hours a day, but like, if you want to be a present parent, that your kids actually, when you get to a later stage of life, actually want to visit you in the hospital bed, right? But I think like those first 3 things, like I spent a lot of the first part of my career there, like literally I was, in shape all the time, like I was just focusing on my training. I was focusing on my business. I was focusing on my friends, but like I hadn't experienced unconditional love, right? Why was I doing this? Or just so I could drive a nice car and feel good about myself because I had money in the bank?
So I want to break these down then. So let's talk about the first one. Let's just start with the first one. Dialing in health. So you mentioned emotional, physical, spiritual, mental fitness. I'm curious, why is this number 1 and not money enough tribe?
Very, very, very good. Yeah. Pretty simple, man. Like if I look at layer 1, it ultimately leads to how do you feel when you wake up in the world, right? Physically, mentally, and spiritually. And if I define those 3 as categories, physically, like, am I waking up pain-free? My back hurting? Is my knee hurting? Am I sick? Whatever that might be. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, you are going to feel those things. Emotionally, like, am I actually waking up happy? Right? And a lot of that will come back to the level of fulfillment, because you can be happy but still be spiritually hollow.
So how can we start to work on that today? Like, because somebody listening to this, I know, is working their business, they're doing the things, but still feeling like they're suffering on the inside, or they're burning out on the inside. What are some things they can start doing to improve their emotional fitness, their mental fitness, all these things?
Yeah. Look, what I've found has worked really, really well for me, and it's going to sound very simple and probably cliche, but it's the good old journal. Yeah, it's the good old journal. Like, if I look at my framework with how I water the grass in layer 1 every day, my key non-negotiables every day is I do breath work / meditate 1 to 2 times a day.
So you're trying to do something for each of these levels daily?
Every day.
That's
every day. Yeah. So in a very good point. Like, well, let's translate that to give practical tips, right? So I water the grass every day with breath work / meditation, right? Generally, I'll do it for anywhere from 10 to 25 minutes when I start my day. With that, I tend to focus more on breath work and visualization that works towards the top part of the pyramid. Like, what does my legacy look like with my family, my loved ones, and stuff like that? And getting myself into that state every day where I'm feeling that, right? I might have, had a bad night's sleep or a fight with my wife or whatnot, and technically I'm waking up kind of remembering that from yesterday, like, oh, fuck, but I'm still conditioning myself to get into that state of presence, right? The other thing that I do generally, there's 2 other things. The end of the day, I will journal, and it could just be something as simple as 3 things that I'm grateful for in the day, 3 things that, written in the current tense, 3 things that I'm grateful for that haven't technically happened right now, but I'm writing as though they have happened. So more goals, intentions. So I don't set goals, I set intentions. And I'll tell you the clear difference as to why. A goal to me, in the way that I interpret it, is a goal is something that is out there and there's a need attached to it. It's a goal of mine.
You're pedestaling it.
Yeah, like I'm pedestaling. I need to achieve my goal. An intention is a goal that's already been realized. Right? So a goal that's already been realized, I'm looking back on the goal as though I've already realized it. So in saying that, I actually am identifying with.
How would you explain the difference? Like, let's say if you're writing down, instead of saying because if I write goals, I might be like, I am this. I'll write in present tense. Like, I'm so happy and grateful now that we're making $1 million months or whatever. I'll write goals like that in present tense. What would be the difference in scripting or writing intention versus goals?
So for me, an intention could be like if I was relating it to $1 million a month, right? Of income, or let's just say, let's just backtrack it. I want to earn $200,000 a year, right? That's an intention of mine. It could be something as simple as, I'm grateful for earning no less than. So I use the term no less than because I don't want 200 to be the limitation.
Yeah, okay.
Right? By no later than. So I'm going to put the time horizon that to me is, I guess, the latest possibility that I'd like to consider. So let's just say, what are we in now? March, right? And by next March, I want to be earning $200,000 per annum. So, I'm grateful for earning no less than $200,000 by no later than March the 15th, 2025, so that I can positively impact my family, my loved ones, and yada, yada, yada. So I'm writing it more from a place of not giving it a boundary and a container. Like, I'm giving it a minimum viable acceptance level that I like to have it at, without allowing that to be the one kind of barometer that I'm setting by.
Interesting. Okay, so level 2 is all that tribe. So what I'm curious on this, because tell me if you ever went through this or not, that there was a point in my career where there was the tribe that I was around was not the tribe that you'd want to be around. And then once I started to sort of figure out, gym rowing, some of the 5 people we surround yourself with, all this, I started to really invest in my circle. So, and I still work with some people now, and I'm sure you would too, where they really want to go to a new version, but they've got this old tribe that might be negative, might be toxic, or that throwing shade at them or whatever. And they know they've got to break away. Sometimes people have this fear of like, well, I don't want to leave my friends. And I've always been like, no, you don't have to leave them, but you just shorten how much you're around them. Like, you just push it. You don't have to spend all fucking day.
I inherently, So like, for example, I don't have any friends that are grumpy anymore, right? And it's not because they're bad people. They're not. They're,
Values misalignment.
it's just there's a values misalignment.
Yeah.
There's a living misalignment, really. Like what is considered important to them is not considered important to me. You know, you can see it when you meet someone. It's like, how's your day been? They're like, oh, not too bad.
Yeah. Or even better at work.
Or if it's not too bad, that's what your day's gonna look like. Not too bad. You know, how's my day? It's fucking great. It's phenomenal. How's yours? You know, like, and so I think surrounding yourself, like, I kind of sit in there's the part of me inherently that is kind of more, I would say, and I've heard Hormozy speak about this a bit, where it's just like, cut them off, don't speak to them ever again and stuff like that. And there's part of me that is like that, but then the father in me that's learned compassion is now like more along with what you just said, where it's like, I still love you, but I'm just not going to call you every week now. You know, I have it with my own parents. I love my parents. You know, I'm so grateful to them. But I you know, skipping rope analogy, I'll jump in and skip with them for an hour or two and something like that. But I'm not going to spend the whole day.
Yeah.
You know, unless they need me, right? Because I don't want, you know, if your energy, if you're trying to protect your energy and stuff like that, I've learned I need to distance myself to a certain extent, but still maintain connection where needed, you know, because they are your tribe at the end of the day.
How can somebody start to break away, you know, start to, I guess, identify maybe these people aren't serving because they will justify as well. They're like, oh, but you know, but she's good. She just, you know, like, how can they start to identify that maybe this is not the tribe for me, but then start to find their new tribe? Because that's the scary Chris Williamson talked about. It wasn't the lonely chapter. You know, it was the only reapers where it's that commonality, it's that ground between, I don't fit in this group anymore, but these guys don't accept me yet because I'm not like them yet, and I'm by myself.
Yeah. Get better at listening. And so what I mean by that is when people are like, everyone in my network now, and I'm sure it's quite similar for you, when you speak to them about the latest win, the latest book, the latest podcast, whatever it is, it will 99.99% of the time be met with, that's awesome, awesome stuff. Tell me more, right? If you're not getting that from your friends, if the responses are the opposite, oh, that's wanky, that is a woo-woo, that's this, that's listening, because that environment is not going to lead to Morgan 2030 or Daine 2030. Yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, the distance approach, as you kind of alluded to. Like, when you identify who those people are, like, you know, there is no other way around it. You do just need to start, well, you don't need to, it's free will, right? But my recommendation wouldn't be to start to distance yourself from that. And, you know, like, what you'll find is over time, like, you will, like, I mean, we've all been through it, you will inadvertently rub people the wrong way. You hear things like, you think you're too good for us now. You know, I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah.
You're too good for us now. You're too good for me. Or you don't have time for me anymore. It's like, no, I'm not too good for you. I do have time for you, but I'm focusing on becoming the best version of me that I can be. And yeah, that doesn't involve me drinking every night and having a beer watching football. You know, that involves me going to the gym, reading, and spending time with my wife or whatever that might be, you know.
You don't happen to me in this space. It's super interesting because I've been in entrepreneurship now for a decade.
Yeah.
And when I first got started, I was 21. And so all my friends,
pretty much.
Yeah. So all my friends, we were drinking, partying, picking up girls, fighting, drugs, all of it, right? Yeah. And then one year across a couple months, I was just kind of like, I want to do something different. I started getting into business, and I went to my first like business conference, self-development event. I'm like, oh my God, so much better doing this on the weekend than being wasted and hungover. And I started to, you know, separate myself. And what I tried to do is to bring all my old friends with me. I was like, guys, like, come on, like, let's do it. And
yeah,
they weren't ready. And what happened was this: they were in university still. I never went to university.
Yeah.
So they were going through. They bought into this world where they were like, no, like we're gonna become psychologists, and then work, and that's what we're doing. Well, I already had 4 years in the work life as a carpenter, and I fucking hate that. I was like, guys, you don't understand. And they didn't come with me. So what happened was we sort of just distanced for a long time. We just didn't have the same interests. I went and grew my business. I moved to Mexico. I did all this stuff. And we got reconnected literally last year because I saw a funny meme and it reminded me reminded me of this. We used to be in a band in school. I sent it to the boys. I'm like, we should start the band again. I was just like, I haven't told you guys in years. And they're like, yo, like, hey, like, let's catch up. We haven't seen you in so long. And I'm like, yeah. And they go, dude, like, we've been listening to your podcast. And they're like, hey, you're doing so well. Hey, we have a business now. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? I'm like, here, let's go get dinner together. We all went and got dinner. You know what? They had been watching all the stuff I've been doing, seen it as an inspiration, and they've all gotten started their own e-commerce businesses, and they're all now left their jobs. They just moved to Dubai. One of them is doing $1 million a month. And I'm like,
oh, good.
I'm like, what the fuck? And they've come to my events now. But you know what happened there? Because they're like, dude, like, we will see all the stuff you've been doing. Like, it's crazy. Now we've all reconnected. But it took a decade. I was going to say, we are connected back over live missions again.
So and it probably adds on to what I was going to say, like, you might have seasons of life. You might have networks and people right now in your life that are just counterproductive to where you're at. And you got to, I keep using the word compassion, empathy. These are things that my wife has drilled into me, right? And they've probably been two of the biggest kind of skill sets or characteristics that I've had to learn to evolve into. But for whatever reason, they just might not be where you need to be in life. So you might have to cold turkey them for a period of time, right? But if you're meant to come back into each other's life, you're meant to come into each other's life. And I've had that happen too, where it's like, and I've had it happen where they haven't changed too. Yeah. Right. But they haven't changed. Whereas before, like what you did, I used to try and force them, like, come with me, come, like, let's go together. Now it's like, I'm going to help open the door up for them.
Yeah.
Not forcefully. If they want to step into it, great. If they don't, I'm just going to be that stable kind of pillar that they can look to for advice on something. I'm not going to be there for them every day, but I'm still going to try and do my best to help them in whatever way I can. I'm just not going to continuously go out of my way the same way that I might have used to when I started the journey.
So the next level is wealth.
Yeah.
And what I'm curious to know, so you've done over $100 million now in your companies.
Yeah.
You've done it without sacrificing health,
yeah,
relationships. I want to understand the mindset behind, like the financial mindset behind you. So if you were to put it down to anything, is there any sort of like financial philosophies or financial mindset, beliefs you have that you've held that you would say has really helped you build this wealth?
Few things. I definitely have sacrificed health and had breakdowns and all this stuff over the years. So
During the way.
Along the journey. So like I've had to skill stack through really bad experiences, like, like breakdowns and suicidal moments and things like that. Like I've been through the whole spectrum of the human experience, right? I'd say my philosophy with money now, if I was to simplify it, is I circulate it, I don't spend it.
Okay.
All right.
So no attachment to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I spend it because I know that I have the skill set and I have the belief in the value that I'm providing the planet that it's going to come back to me. Right. That doesn't mean I go and circulate it haphazardly, but I also, much to my wife's dismay at times, I wouldn't say I do monitor my money, but I also know that it's going to come back to me. So I'm not adverse to taking what others would perceive as risks. It's like, the last 2 years we've, done $25 million in acquisitions across different businesses and stuff like that out of nowhere, like it was kind of, I'd been going not slow and steady, but building. And I got to this point like, you know what? Like, am I happy with this level that I'm playing at now? Probably not. Could I expand things a bit more? Probably yes. Do I have the resource to do it? Yes. Just do it. Right. But I had the belief in myself to do it. So I think a lot of the certainty that I have around money right now comes from a place of just knowing that I'm good at what I'm doing and that what I'm doing actually provides value to the planet. And I think the more value that you provide to the planet, you will be rewarded, maybe not tomorrow, but over the long term. And, again, 13 years to get to 8 figures.
Yeah.
Right. It took a while of like reps under the bar. Yeah, everyone wants to earn 8 figures, start their business and do $1 million months in, 2 or 3 years. Doesn't always work out that way.
But what do you think could help someone improve that? Because it's like you have this self-trust now because you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
Self-trust now that... Yeah, and I had the same thing. It's like I can spend money because I trust my ability to make it again. But I do also remember a time where I was scared to let go of it as well. Yeah. And I used to practice. There was 2 things I used to do. So I'm curious to know if you do anything similar. There's 2 things I used to practice doing. One was just give money away, like just donate.
Yep.
And be okay with just actually giving some away to a charity. And I would practice just building the muscle of, giving. And the second one would be, I would put 10% of every single dollar I made away into a play account. Because I'm kind of like you, I'm a spender. Yeah. I just like to have fun.
Yeah.
I'm the guy you want to hang around with at a bar. Right? Everyone's good around.
So dinner's on you tonight?
Yeah. And then, so I put 10% away.
Yeah.
And once a month, my only job was to take it all out and blow it. Okay? Because what it would do with a few things. One, it satisfied my need to want to spend money. So I'd start to control my urges of like spending, but I'd start to spend guilt-free. Because the problem was I would spend money on a new shoes or a dinner or something, but I'd feel kind of guilty in the back of my head. I'm like, gosh, I'm because I should have kept it, right? So I'd spend money. So I started to develop this relationship with money where I wasn't guilty around spending it and enjoying it. And the last thing I did was, if I, even when I was making 10 grand a month, that's $1,000 I'll take it and I blow it. That's a very nice dinner. You know what I mean? That's a very nice night out. What it would do, that's like a nice hotel and a nice dinner. What it would do is the next time I stay at a hotel, and I have to stay at the $150 a night hotel, it says to me like, I've had this, now I go back to this. It's like flying first class, then jumping in a cognac getting like, fuck, it makes you hungry again.
All of those things, like the charity part, definitely done that.
Mm-hmm.
The other two parts, haven't done them in that way, but listening to you, I'm like, great logic behind that, and you've almost done it to build the muscle.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
And it gave me the taste of, like, without being like, oh, one day. I'm like, well, I'm going to experience it now so I can, let my body feel comfortable driving a nice car. And then also when I come back to normal, I'm like, it makes me hungry.
For me, it's probably been two things. One was like, people look at the place now, right? Like with the 7 kids and everything that we go and do. And if anyone, sees the type of life that I have, like I have a fucking awesome lot. It's awesome. I don't have restrictions per se, right? But it wasn't always that way. And for the first, like anyone that's kind of new in their journey, like for my first 10 years almost, delayed gratification. I wasn't circulating anything unless it was going back into reinvesting in myself to become better at my craft. I remember I was earning $1.5 million a year profit in 2012. So 5 years into clean health. And I was driving a $6,000 Burgundy 1992 BMW.
Yeah.
I used to park it a block away from my gym because I was embarrassed that my staff would say, because back then I gave a shit. No. Yeah, back then I did. I'd be embarrassed that the CEOs of banks and different people that I was training back then would see like, oh wow, I'm in this great center with this dude and he's driving this crap box. But I put all of my money, so I had that mindset of delayed gratification. That was the first thing. The second thing was actually just learning to know my numbers. I know my numbers. I'm a human calculator. I've trained and conditioned myself up to, in essence, be an Excel sheet. I have Excels and everything. My break even, our ratio of debt to cash, everything. I have lots of SOPs and processes that I have in my business and personal life where, I will check this stuff weekly just to make sure certain numbers and references aren't there. I quite comfortably, I can sit in a boardroom with my board and all this type of stuff that are much more experienced than me in finance and stuff like that, but I can hold my own. So I've learned to become money literate, but then I guess I've probably attached a spiritual mentality to money at the same time. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So the next one is love. And it's funny, you kind of, Yuri said literally the quote that I was going to mention, because I saw his reel the other day, and they interviewed some billionaire who was like 95 years old or something. And they asked him, like, what's one of the biggest secrets to your success? And he goes, the biggest secret to my success was marrying the right woman. Yeah. Because the right woman can be there when you have hard days, can be there when you need a bounce ideas or can keep you grounded. But the wrong woman can distract you.
That was my first wife.
The problem is can distract you, can fuck you over, can make you stay up at night. Yeah, I've had that and all these things, right? And I think now I got an incredible relationship. We just got engaged, and Simona's like that with me. Our relationship seems easy. We talk about it a lot. We're like, we work on the relationship, sure, but it's like we go to the gym, but we're not. We need to get. It's just with our relationship feels so easy because we just very slow support each other. And so I'm curious on this because I've seen, you said so your first wife, obviously. So I'm curious to know what are the signs? Well, this is perfect for, if you obviously sounds like you went through, the first wasn't great, second one's great. So what are the signs, and I should really look for, especially as a man, to know that shit, maybe I'm not in the right relationship, because dating an entrepreneur isn't it easy.
So the first thing is, if you're hiding anything from your wife, anything, how you're doing in your business, money problems, I've been through them. I've lost millions. I've lost $2 million actually on a bad acquisition the last 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. So anything, if you're hiding anything from your woman, she's not the right look for you.
So you're saying that's a signal that you don't trust, or something, there's some sort of unconscious thing that you don't trust them already.
You don't have unconditional trust and love for them, because if you had unconditional trust and love, you would respect them enough to tell them everything, right? And so my first wife, I didn't know it at the time because I was friggin' sleepwalking, but I would, she'd ask me how my day was at work. And I thought I was being the macho man saying it's all right. Little did she know that day, for example, that my GM resigned and blah, 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 and I was stressed as shit, and I was sitting in my office like, fuck, how am I going to get through this, right? So I think that's the first telltale sign, is if you do not feel comfortable enough to have trust with your life partner, then you probably don't have the right life partner.
I think a lot of dudes do that though as well, because they feel like they don't want to put the burden on. They're like, they wear the weight, like, let me hold it, I'll take care of it.
But you can still hold the weight, you can still hold the space, you can still be that anchor point in your relationship, But I would say the dynamic of, a male and woman, or man and woman, they anchor different points in the relationship. So it's like, you should have an open enough relationship where you can communicate about anything, knowing that you've got each other's backs no matter what, and that you will get through that period in your time together. I say that, like, my wife and I now, we've gone through affairs. I had an affair on her. She's nearly died multiple times since we've been together. We've gone through family court with my ex-wife in 5 years in family court. I've gone through liquidating business, losing millions. We've gone through every type of experience that you could have. And one thing that I've learned to allow us to get through all of that together is just radical honesty, radical transparency.
How did you move through the affair? I'm curious on that one, because I imagine she would have a lot of trust issues after that.
No. It actually brought us close together. So, yeah, I'll explain that one. So, I went through a period in my life where, hands up if you're a dude, if you ever try to self-sabotage. Yeah. Never made a pussy hand up, right? Yeah. So it's like everything was going good in my life and blah, blah, blah. And then, what had happened was I'd just gotten into a relationship with my wife now. And she had 3 boys, right? So I, in essence, all of a sudden had 3 stepsons. Conversely, I had 1 daughter from my previous marriage. Now, my daughter at the time was very young. She was like only under a year old, right? And so in my relationship at the time, my ex-wife wouldn't let me go and see my daughter with my new partner, which I understand, like, she was pissed and stuff like that. New relationship, happy family and all that. But then conversely, I was like kind of living in 2 parallel worlds. I was going back to my old life to spend time with my daughter, and then I was spending time in this new relationship with 3 boys that weren't mine. And so I was at the time trying to juggle all of these emotions. I'm like, well, I just think I'm just going to blow this up. And I had an affair on my EA, right? And, long story short, but what came out of that is when my wife found out, because at the time I didn't have the fucking balls to tell my wife, Lauren, of what I'd been doing. Mind you, I had cut it off 6 months prior to her finding out, but I still did the wrong thing, and you didn't have the balls. After she punched me in the face and kicked me in balls, literally.
I was going to say, I'm like, I know, Lauren, I couldn't imagine her compensation.
Deserved. Well, no, that guy. Well deserved, right? And it took time, man. It took time. It took a good, I'd say probably a year. But that's the thing. You know what? Like, what's the number one life hack, Daine, to be successful, live long, or whatever? Just be fucking resilient. That's what it came down to. Like, 13 years to get 8 figures, resilience. Losing money, bouncing back again, resilience. Affair, issues in your relationship, how do you get back there? Resilience. But also having to put we speak about these seven stages of the abundance period. That was a stage where I had to water the garden of our relationship. It couldn't just be a once a week date night. You know what I mean? There was a lot more involved. There was times when it's like, let me see your phone. Cool, see my phone. Like I had to earn her trust. I had to, I had to be, not say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it took time, but we were able to come out of that just with a strength of relationship and character that we know, like, there's nothing that could happen that would ever break us now. So it wasn't like one thing. It was kind of time under the bar.
Yeah.
Me as the person that had done the wrong thing, like even 3 months later, 4 months later, like there might be something where she'd get triggered and say, let me see your phone, or do that, not because she's insecure, but because she's attaching something that happened to a trauma that she still feels in her body. Right. So it came back to me, because like a lot of men fuck up in a relationship, right? And women these days too, but a lot of men do. And then 3-6 months later, they're like, oh, it's over. Like, get over it. Doesn't work that way. Women inherently are more emotionally attuned than us, and they feel things more than us. It's like I had to respect that as part of the process, and lick my wounds for 6 to 12 months, and that was just part and parcel of it. But I'm glad that I did, because I wouldn't have gone on to have 3 kids with her and done everything that we've done together.
Yeah. Okay, so the first signal is not being able to actually open up to the person. So hiding things from them.
Yep, not being able to.
What other signals are we looking for?
There's a few things. I would say the other one is.
I'll add one actually. I'll add one, because this is where I have seen like, my partner now is amazing at this. Her love language is quality time.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm not with her, that's when she's like, oh. Or if I'm with her and I'm working, it's like a dagger to her, right? But I think, well, I'm with you. I'm like watching a movie, but I'm on my phone working, right? And it took me a while to sort of realize this, that she said to me, because I'm like, honestly, I feel bad, because before her, I used to work till midnight. If I feel like sometimes I just get energy at night, and I want to work. I like what I do. And with her, I want to be very mindful. I'll put my laptop away. We spend the night together. It's quality time. And I thought that she wanted quality time every single day. And I only realized this probably 18 months ago. She's like, no, it's not how much quality time we have. Just the time we have has to be quality.
It's the same with kids.
And so what we've been doing is, there's been some times where I say, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to come home till like 10 o'clock tonight. I'm working. She's like, awesome, do that. And she supports that. And I'm like,
oh, she helped space.
This is amazing. Where I was preempting she's going to be pissed because she wants to be home. And what she actually does is she supports me so much, where if I say, this week's going to be crazy, not going to see much, but she's like, all good. But it's so I think the red flag would be the partner who goes, oh my God, you work so much. You care more about your business than me. It's these moments.
That comes back to trust. But the other thing comes back to, like, without trust, there can be no unconditional love. And people throw around the world love a lot. Like, I love my partner. Do you? Would you love them if they were overweight? Would you love them if they were broke? Would you love them if they were just someone without a name and without a profile? I mean, we see this here on the Gold Coast, right? There's a lot of status attached up on the gold. And that's generalization, but like being real, it is. My wife now, so the second thing that you should look for is that you have eye contact, relationship, and a feeling with someone that is the complete opposite of anyone else that you've been with before. Right? So I'll give you an example. All of my partners prior to my wife were like fitness models, CoverGirl magazines, all that stuff. They were cosmetically very beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? I.e. the old handbag analogy. Right? They were amazing to physically look at. From a substance perspective, I didn't worry about any of that. I just worried about the cosmetic side of things, right? Because I was young, that's what I thought was important to me. That's what I thought would make me happy. I needed someone else to help me make myself look good because I felt insecure in myself, all these type of things. Whereas with my wife now, she's the first person in my life where, like, the checklist. So if you have a checklist for your partner or your no, like, this is the first time there was no checklist. I was just like, you are so opposite to anyone that I've ever kind of had a feeling for, but I just can't shake this feeling. I can't shake how I feel. So it's like that. She was the first person that I actually experienced unconditional love. And to me, unconditional love is a very simple thing. It's basically through thick or thin, through any kind of young, old, fat, skinny, in shape, rich, whatnot. Would you want to spend your time in the trenches with that person? And would you actually want to be with them, hold them, nurture them, and be there for them? And I would choose my wife 100 out of 100 times to do that. You know, she's my unconditional love. She's the person that cracked me over in that space. And that's why it's the fourth part of the abundance pyramid, because at the end of the day, I don't know. And this is my opinion, right? I don't feel that you can ever reach your highest mission and values in life unless you've experienced unconditional love. And I'll tell you why. Because unconditional love you be less selfish. You start to learn about things like compassion. There's less judgment now. You accept things. Radical transparency. All of these qualities and emotions that you might not have experienced before, they get activated within you, right? And when you could get activated from that place and actually start sharing that out there and putting that out with people, that's when you actually start to, realize what it is you are here to do in this life.
I'm curious to know on yours. You have 7 kids, multiple businesses. Yeah. I'm curious to know not just how you do. Do you eat 3 ladies? Yeah. I'm curious on not just how you manage your time. Yeah. But also how you manage your connection and the quality with the kids and the business. Like, what are you doing to balance? So not because I think anyone can manage time. Thinking like on time blocking, blah blah blah. How are you really making sure the time you're spending with kids, family, businesses, the time you're spending is super impactful?
You said one thing before about your wife and where she alluded to that, mate, Morgan, I don't need to spend time with you every day. I just need some quality times, not on your phone, where we can look into each other's eyes and reconnect, right? Like quality time. Same thing as a parent, right? One thing I've realized, and I used to place a lot of guilt on myself, like I'd be out all day working in one of those seasons of life where there were 14, 15-hour days and stuff like that. Like right now, I'm not in one of those seasons. Right now, I'm in one of those seasons where, if we were to consider this work, it's like just catching up, right? This week, probably 20 hours of work, right? Business will keep me off. This week, it's all about quality time because, so, this morning it was basically, we went out, what did we do? We went out to, went for a walk, went out and did what was it called? That indoor skydiving thing. So we went and did toy making with my 3 little ones. What else did we do? We came back and went for a swimming pool and all that type of stuff. So it's like making sure that I block out times. It could only be 10 minutes. And this is actually something I learned from my wife, because she's birthed 6 kids. We've got 7, but she's birthed 6 of them. And she is the master of being present in a mirror. She is the absolute master. I've learned so much from her in that space about basically, one thing she's reiterated to me, it's like all they need is like 10 minutes of being there on the ground, playing, hugging, loving. Like, there's studies that actually show like, oxytocin, that feel-good endorphin hormone in kids, one of the best ways to activate it, it's as a father. Fathers actually activate that exponentially in kids when they play with them, tickle them, cuddle them, nurture them on the ground. So, as coming into, being a dad, that would be one thing that I wish someone had told me from the outset.
But you're releasing it from the child or from
activating it in them. Yeah, just that. Because again, kids have a different relationship with their dad, right? Kids don't need their dad until they're 7 or 10 years old. Think about it. Especially the first 3 or 4 years, they don't need you. We're just like,
so they're ready to kick a ball.
Yeah, right. They don't need us. But if one thing that
I've joked with Simona, and actually, I'm like, for the first few years, you're all covered, you need me, ring the bell. But when they're 4 and they can kick the ball, I'm going to step out.
A lot of men kind of, and again, we've been programmed to believe that. Yeah. And there's truth to that. But like the more that we can play with them from a young age and just like hold them and, change it, do have to like be there as an active dad, the more you're going to program that into them so that you're going to have just that unbreakable bond. Now teenagers are different, a different kettle of fish. It's funny because, going from 2 to 18 or 2018, it's a very different relationship, But it's funny, like one thing that kids are great at absorbing the environment. So it's like my 7-year-old has started a business now, and my 17-year-old started business, right? So the 17-year-old is a stepson, right? Who has been around the last 10, 11 years since I've been around. All of a sudden he started a business, and my 7-year-old who's been around since day dot is the start of the business. So it's like, again, it's perfect examples of what they see, they do. So it's like, it comes back to as a parent, it's like, what are you showing?
Yeah. So what can people start doing? You mentioned you're doing something in each area every day. So I want them to sort of get something tangible from this and go, like, what's something they can start doing today straight away to actually start to, I guess, initiate, like ignite something in each one of these areas every single day. What could they do? We've already covered 1. So the morning stuff.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, morning stuff and evening stuff. They're my two like non-negotiable, because the morning stuff is about like those top line things like North Star, legacy, what does my future feel like and look like? The evening stuff is recapping what I've done, giving myself some compassion or empathy on where I could improve on things, and saying, fuck, you know what, I yelled at my kids today. Does that make you a bad parent? No, it just makes you, right? But at least I've identified it, right? I will breathe before I go to bed every night, because most entrepreneurs, OCD, Asperger's, live up here all day. So it's a kind of calming down thing. The other thing is I would just try and find, it could be 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, whether it's your loved one or kids or both, where you just have phones off tight. So one thing that I do for no less than 24 hours every week is turn my phone on. So like my phone will generally go off at 3 p.m. on Saturday, and I'll turn it back on at 6 p.m. on Sunday. Just simple things like that, where like you're disconnecting every day in the evening. Like my routine, I'll get up between kind of 4 to 6 a.m. I don't put an alarm on. I'll just get up when I feel like getting up. And, I'll have my phone on personal only notifications, which is literally my kids, my wife, my nannies, and then my CFO and my COO. So basically the person that manages the money in the business, that manages the operations in the business, they're the only ones on personal. And up until 1 o'clock, no one else can get through to me. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like all my notifications drop. I do all my deep work, right? That, from that. And like from that time, there'll be training. There'll be maybe getting the kids ready for school. There'll be a good 3-4 hour block of like creative work where I don't have to engage with anyone. Could be, I don't know, creating a funnel, creating content, whatever it might be. And then basically from 1 to 3 o'clock is where I open myself up for moving levers in the business or businesses, i.e. delegation and communication and mentoring. And mentoring is a big part, like actually mentoring your team members. I think that's why, the background of being an actual personal trainer and coach has helped me, because I was so used to mentoring and coaching people. I've been able to kind of take that sporting team mindset into entrepreneurship, like as the head coach, right? And then from 3 o'clock to some days 4 o'clock, but any time between then, it's like phones off. And then they don't go back on until maybe 7 o'clock when I'm foam rolling in my bedroom after putting the kids down to sleep with my wife, and, checking for any important things that have come in before going to wind down at the end of the day. So like I'm very regimented with that. I don't deviate from that, like maybe 1 in every 7 days for something.
Yeah. I love it. There's definitely a lot of people can take from all of these, and I like the idea of sort of just consciously ticking the box and actively like putting it at the forefront of your mind. It's like, what am I doing for health today? What am I doing for love and connection? What am I doing for wealth? And the rest of it. So I love it, dude. We could talk for a lot more. But it's not mindful. So where can we find you and everything online?
Look, just Instagram at Daine Mcdonald, YouTube at Daine Mcdonald. Like if you want a copy of the Abundance Pyramid, just message me and I'll send it to you on DM. Like I don't have any programs or anything that I sell, because all of my stuff is just focused on my actual businesses and tribe. But I love to give, I love to serve, I love to help. So just reach out and I'll see if I can help you.
I love it, man. Alrighty, so final question is, if you go back to your 18-year-old self and give him 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Live in the moment and enjoy the process. And it sounds so fucking cliche, but it's just like, for entrepreneurs, and especially someone wide like myself, who thinks of these long-term time horizons, just enjoy being here right now, touching your table, speaking here, looking at you, like enjoy the fuck of it.